What up, family and friends? This is Brother Tezwan. I wanted to come out and do a video real quick on why I feel like the coronavirus, COVID-19, is going to continue to spread as rampantly as it is. It may slow down a little bit, but you're going to continue to see it spread. So this morning I woke up with a little bit of body ache and a little bit of a tightness of the chest, and my logic is it's sinus season. This time of the year, the pollen, especially here in Georgia, the pollen gets up pretty good. So it's something, a lot of the symptoms that I would have this time of the year are a lot of the same symptoms for the coronavirus. And so I was just thinking, I was like, man, I hope this is pollen, because I have been out working quite a bit the last week or so, out in the public, around people, and I have been taking precautions as much as I can, hand sanitizer, trying to keep my distance, using a mask, using gloves, trying to keep long sleeve shirts and stuff like that, washing my hands. So I've been practicing, pretty much everything that I've been preaching. But I had to, I think, once jobs start opening back up and clients start calling me, I could not afford to not take work, because I, like most Americans, I had very little, I had enough savings to put away to cover for a month, but that's really all I had. And if you know anything about the American economy and, how, America works for the most part, 50% of Americans live from check to check, and they don't have any savings put away. And then it's about, depending on which estimates and reports you look at, what source, between 15 and 25% of people have about enough, just like me, I fall in this group, enough to cover a month without work. All right. So it's one of those scenarios where, with the government not requiring people to stay home, and the COVID-19 and the coronavirus, only really affecting elderly and people with underlying conditions, like those are the primary two groups. So the average American, if you're in the age groups that not really affected and you don't have really an underlying condition, most people, if what they're saying is true, and everything that I've seen, what is being said, your symptoms might be mild, or no symptoms at all. And, I guess the distinction in the scenario, for most people, I think the biggest distinction for me would be if I had a fever. I think that would be the only thing that separates how I respond versus me not responding at all, is a fever. And so I was just thinking about it this morning, like I said, experiencing some of the hay fever or sinus season symptoms that I know are the same symptoms as COVID-19. I'm like, okay, am I the type of person to stop doing what I need to do because I need to continue to go to work? Even if I had it, and I'm just be honest, I'm not willing, I'm not really willing to stop, because the government is saying don't get tested unless you sure you got it. And I mean, I've been dealing with this thing since late January when I first started researching it. So every day you wake up with things that you're like, oh, is this the COVID? Is this the Rona? As I've heard it being called in the streets, is it that? And, by and large, most people are probably looking at it just like I am, in terms of work, doing what I got to do to survive. So the door where the government is saying that we're not going to completely shut you down testing is voluntary. We really only want you to test if you know, if you're showing all the symptoms. It's working. That door swings both ways. And what I think a lot of people is doing is they got it, but they're still going out in the public because they have to. They have to go to work. They have to, make means to provide for their families and themselves. So why would I tell on myself and put my family or put my living situation at risk if I'm showing mild or no symptoms? Nobody in their right mind is going to do that, and that is the danger of the government being so laissez-faire, nonchalant about this disease, about this virus. Is people, they're gonna have symptoms, and it's gonna be like like me with I'm confident the symptoms that I'm having is from the allergy, because yesterday the pollen was real thick, and like I said, this time of the year, this is a normal thing that I go through, my wife goes through, with so much pollen being in the air, the tightness in the chest and the sneezing, and like I've been working, day before yesterday we worked pretty hard, so I'm kind of achy, so all of these things. But I woke up again this morning like, yo, is this the COVID? Is this the Rona? And so I had to make a conscious decision and say, nah, it ain't the Rona, it's the hay season, and you being affected by it. But in the case where it could be, am I about to stop going getting money? Nah, man. And again, I just feel like that's America, because the light company ain't said we got you, the water company ain't said we got you, the rent man ain't said we got you, the mortgage man ain't said we got you. All the government has said is we're gonna send you $1,200, but they ain't said when they gonna send the $1,200. So like I was watching the news last night, man, they were saying that 40% of New Yorkers are gonna be coming up on their rent today. Today is the 1st, and a lot of New Yorkers are being faced right now with the epidemic that's currently going on in New York. This chaotic situation that's going on in New York, with having to figure out if they're gonna have a place to stay in a few days, And that's not only New York, that's around the country. Today's the 1st. Probably 70 to 80% of people in America that pay rent and pay a mortgage, is due today. And fortunately for me, I was able to go ahead and pay mine, but if work continues to be as tight and as slow as it has been, I'm towards the end of the month, I might have to call and have some conversations with some people, because I'm not about to give you my last. I understand that I have this obligation and this responsibility to pay you, but I can only pay you based on money coming in. And if the money coming in has dwindled or has stopped altogether for a lot of people, no, man, I'm gonna put my family and providing for my family over paying you. And then that's where the scenario becomes sticky, because if you try to come cut my shit off, or you come talking about trying to put somebody out, that's a whole different scenario. You putting me in a position where you pushing me in a corner. And I think over the next week or so, you're going to start to see and hear more and more about people, just being put in these situations. And it's one of those things where, I know the experiences that I've had. A lot of people, man, they're not being empathetic. They're not being thoughtful when it comes to, things that people are going through. I had a situation earlier this week, on the military base. People are just not thinking. And I'm not going to get into the details of that, but it shows me and it proves the point that people are not being sympathetic and empathetic to people's struggle right now. America is a me society first. And, just because this coronavirus is out here in these streets, man, it don't stop people from being stupid. It don't stop people from being ignorant. It don't stop people from being insensitive to other people. And it's one of those things where as times get much tighter And like today is the first. You know, as people get under the pressure of having to pay bills and having to pay a mortgage or having to pay rent or whatever the case may be, you're gonna see a lot more people, you know, reacting negative, right or wrong, on both sides. Whether you the person that's responsible to pay the bill or you the person that's looking to get paid. So, you know, and the government, to me, I mean, they made a step. It was a step in the right direction by, you know, passing this $2 trillion bill to get Americans money. But very little has been said or done about when Americans are going to get this money. And, you know, a lot of cases, shit, that money is going to be gone the moment most people get it. And it's sad because nobody's talking about the fact that a lot of these companies are not deferring their payments. They're not deferring. Hey, what's up, Kiana? I love you. Be safe out there. Make sure mom and poppy being safe. I'm gonna call them today. I promise. But a lot of these companies are not deferring payments, and you know, I ain't seen in my area. I hadn't seen nobody say nothing. And you know, I paid my rent this morning, but I do know that banks are. You know, I do know that some of the banks have deferred mortgages, but I hadn't seen or heard about any of the major banks deferring any major mortgages. Any of the major mortgage, you know, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Berkshire Hathaway. I haven't seen or heard of any of those companies deferring mortgage payments. You know, so if you in a mortgage, you know, so a lot of people were like, when I put out the video a week or so ago about the numbers and talking about what was coming in terms of the economy, you know, a lot of people were not seeing it as I was seeing it. I was projecting out. I was projecting out thinking, look, you know, the first at the time was, you know, a little over a week away. And I'm like, man, what are people going to be doing when it comes time, what is these companies going to do, I should say, when it comes time to pay these bills and to pay these mortgages and this rent, and people just ain't got it, you know? And I know a lot of folk, man, from where I'm from the environment I grew up, hey, man, I ain't got it. And that's pretty much, I ain't even gonna have no conversation with you. I ain't got it. What you gonna do? You know, and that's my mentality. If I ain't got it, I ain't got it. What you gonna do? And then if you step over the line and you act like and you pretend like you don't see the scenario going on, that's gonna create another scenario. That's gonna create a scenario where it's me against you and you against me. And I think for a lot of folk, man, I think that's the part where you need to reach out to your local officials and these local companies, you know, that you got bills with, and say, hey, what are you doing to help out me and your customer through this time of crisis? You know, so if I got any advice, you know, I'm not saying create a hostile scenario for yourself with folk, but you know, you do need to make a attempt to make a phone call and say, hey, what are you doing to help out me as your customer in this time of crisis? And the reason I say that again, man, is because I just know a lot of people, you know, it's the first of the month. A lot of people ain't gonna have it. A lot of people don't got it. You know, again, the government hadn't said, you know, we're gonna give you this money on this date. And I read a couple articles this morning where they were saying that they still trying to figure out exactly how they're gonna distribute the money. The money, you know, when I first started reading about it, they said that the money was gonna be distributed by the IRS and it was gonna be based on the 2018, 2019 tax returns. But a good portion of the American people, about 14 million people, don't do tax returns. You know, whether it's because they don't have the income or because they're elderly or whatever the case may be. So you're telling me that you're gonna get me a check? How? So you're gonna tell me that is 2 to 3 weeks out, and you know the mail takes between 5 and 7 days depending on where I'm at in the country. So by the time I get that $1,200, it's gonna be May. That rent man ain't gonna be waiting. That mortgage people, hey man, you put me in a situation where now I'm behind. And if I've been laid off or furloughed from my job, now what do I do? You know, And I know some of the power companies, the utility companies are making moves, to try to help people, but it is, based on my research, man, it's few and far between. It's few and far between. Like I actually took the time to research it, and my light company, for example, and again, I was able to pay all of my bills, and I've been fortunate in that way. God provides, but I had savings put away. And it wasn't really savings put away. It was just that I was a little bit mindful about my money because I started. I got ahead of this before it got out of control. I was aware of it before it got out of control. So I buttoned down the hatches, and I was like, all right, we got to be more conservative and wise about where we pay, what we buy and spend money on right now. There ain't going to be no Amazon purchase. There wasn't none of that going on. So, in doing that, I was able to put money away and put money and hold on to money, which allowed me, when jobs start slowing down, because I had a week where I didn't have any work. And it was like, when that money started slowing down and my invoices stopped coming in as regularly, it was like, okay, this is how I'm going to stagger these payments. This is who I'm going to pay. I ain't going, like I said, we ain't buying from Amazon. We ain't doing all the spending, Unfortunately, being that this locked us down, we weren't eating out as much. So that saved a lot of money. I hadn't been eating out, when I'm out in public, and it's amazing how much you realize you save when you're in this type of situation, if you're being mindful of your money. But at the same time, if my work continue to be the way it is, if that check don't come soon, Playboy, I'm gonna be making some phone calls. Hey man, I ain't got it. We need to talk about what we gonna do, so you ain't coming putting me in a situation where I'm putting you in a situation. Because you show up in my house, and I know a lot, and I'm speaking things into existence, but I think I'm speaking what I know a lot of people is feeling. If you show up at my house talking about trying to put me out, show up at my house talking about trying to turn my lights off with my kids in this house, trying to turn my water off while my kids in this house, man, we gonna have a problem. Or even if you ain't a utility company, if you a furniture company, or if you somebody, if you a credit card company, you calling me trying to put me under stress to pay you with money I ain't got, man, go ahead on, bro. And I know this is how a lot of folks is feeling, but the topic again was about why people or why the coronavirus will continue to spread. And again, I think it's because the way the government has played this, and the way that the American society is set up, people live from check to check. A whole lot of folk is gonna be like, hey man, I got these mild, minor, non-symptoms. I'm about to go get this bread, because I ain't about to be listening to these folks talking about they about to cut my shit off, talking about they about to put me out. That, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right, but hey, my kids ain't gonna miss no meals. You heard me? I ain't about to be sitting in the dark. Corona or not, I'm about to get it. Corona or not, if this shit don't, if I don't get no fever, if all I'm feeling is a little cough and a little pain or whatever, all the symptoms that they say come with this, hey man, I ain't about to tell on myself. I ain't about to go take no tests. I'm about to go get this bread. And that's how a lot of people is thinking, man. Whether it's right or wrong. And I know people gonna be like, well, why wouldn't you? I just told you why I wouldn't. And again, I know I'm not the only one. I know the vast majority of people out there that live from check to check, that have very little savings, and they probably done used it, they're not gonna stop working. They're not. They're still gonna be, if they can go into work and they boss said, hey, I don't need you to come in. If they boss ain't said that, or the boss ain't said I need you to work from the house, if you a person that work at McDonald's, and McDonald's still telling that, and the government saying that McDonald's is essential. If you a person that work at McDonald's and you got 2 or 3 kids or 4 kids or how many other kids, that person probably still gonna end up going to work. Why? Because that income that's coming in from McDonald's is what's paying the bills. It's what's paying the bills. And the government ain't saying you can't go to work. All they've been saying is, if you think you got it and you showing symptoms, all right, go take a test and tell on yourself. And most folks that I know, hey man, I got these little symptoms. So you're gonna weigh your symptoms over your life and your income. You're gonna weigh it. And I guarantee you 99% of people that's in their right mind is gonna choose to go into that job and get that money until either the shit break them down or they recover from it. They recover. And my aunt texted me yesterday. She was like, she messaged me yesterday. She was like, I see you putting up all the numbers, but you're not putting up the numbers about the people that's recovering. And of course, I can see that point. I've seen that point since the very beginning. Some countries are doing that, but America is not. The states are not. They're not putting up the numbers. I mean, Georgia is one of the better states in terms of tracking this. And the only numbers they're putting up is the number of cases that's been confirmed, the number that's been tested, the number that has been hospitalized, and the number that has died. And the CDC is not even putting up that many numbers, you know? So I would like to be able to tell, hey, this is how many people that has recovered. Now, I did the math to a certain extent, and I can tell you approximately how many people have recovered, but that, you know, there's no really true way to even really do that. I can't say that's accurate because that was just my math based on what I think and how it works. I'm not an expert, I'm not a professional, and I don't pretend to be. But, you know, so in terms of the virus, if I got it, you know, I'm going through the process of recovery. And if my process of recovery is a process of recovery where I'm having to go to work, hey, it is what it is. You know, it is what it is, and that's what. And guys, don't get me twisted. I'm not saying that it's right, but I'm as they say in the street, I'm keeping it real. And if you're keeping it real with yourself and you keeping it real about this scenario, you see exactly what I'm saying. Is that until the government say no, you can't go outside like they did in China. No, you can't just do what you want. People gonna still do what they want. If they don't say everybody needs to take a test, ain't nobody. If I got a symptom, I might have a symptom, but I ain't about to go tell on myself. I'm not about to go tell on myself and miss money. And I'm making this personal to me because I did have that thought this morning. Maybe I got the COVID. Maybe I done ran across somebody and got that Rona. You know, just based on the hay fever symptoms that I was like, no, this got to be that hay fever. I'm not about to go take no test. You know, because it could come back either way. And if it come back that in a way that's going to put 2 weeks, man, I ain't feeling that. I can't afford that. So I just wanted to put that out there, put something on people's mind, man, because I felt like, you know, the government and these folk that's talking all this talk on TV, only looking at it from their position. They're not looking at it, I don't feel like, from real people's position. You know, and you know, it kind of is what it is. So I'm Brother Tez One. Y'all go out there. I plan on, because the day is kind of light. I got one job this morning that's about an hour away. So I plan on, when I get back to the house, putting some stuff up on the website, trying to get these petitions started, trying to get these GoFundMe started. So you'll go out there to that website, www.ooayb.org. Again, that's www.ooayb.org. That is my nonprofit, and I'm going to be trying to help as many people as I can in any way I can as we continue to go through this crisis, man. I love y'all. Y'all be safe. Continue to listen to the doctors and sciences, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.